You think that death is for others. You believe that a crown protects not only from political intrigue, but also from your own body, from its weakness, from that terrifying, sticky fear of the end. But here you are, lying in your bed, recently dazzlingly alive, now surrounded by luxury and empty gazes. Beyond the palace walls, they're already whispering, "How much time do you have left?" In this moment, you realize death in the Middle Ages spares no one, not even those who have spent their whole lives convinced of their own exceptionality. Forget everything you were taught about dignity and greatness. You are in for a long, excruciatingly detailed agony where every hour is a revelation of powerlessness, every breath a step into the abyss of oblivion. But before you make yourself comfortable, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I'm really curious to see who's joined us. Now get comfortable. We're about to begin. You open your eyes to the gentle glow of morning sneaking through a slit in the heavy drapery, illuminating the stone walls with their perpetually cold and clammy surface. It is a kingly morning, and you, Joanna, Queen of Naples, awaken in your bed, which is both an emblem of power and an uncomfortable reminder that wealth cannot buy warmth. The silken sheets are soft, yes, and the pillows are plump, but there is a stiffness in your back that no velvet can soften, and a draft that seeps through even the most tightly woven tapestries. It is not quite the kind of discomfort you can assign to age or excess. You are not yet old, not even by the standards of the day, and yet your bones ache as if the night has pressed centuries into your spine. You try to rise, but your body insists on its own pace. The grandeur of your chamber cannot be overstated. Ornate wooden beams arch overhead, intricate with dust and the delicate work of long dead artisans. Tapestries, heavy and detailed, hang along the walls, depicting scenes of your lineage, battles you never fought, saints you never prayed to, faces you do not recall. The air is thick with the smell of damp stone, a mixture of mildew, beeswax, and something metallic you cannot place. There is no comfort here, only the performance of it. As your feet touch the floor, the chill shoots up your legs, and for a moment you imagine yourself a peasant, barefoot in the fields at dawn. Except you are not. You are a queen, and you must bear the full, absurd ritual of being seen as such. You ring the bell, and, like wraiths, your servants emerge from the corners, wordless and cautious. Perhaps they notice the gray hue to your skin, the way your eyes linger on the window, the slight wince when you move. Or perhaps they see only the crown in their minds and nothing more. Breakfast is brought in. There are silver trays, golden goblets, steaming porridges, and fruits from distant lands. Everything smells slightly off, as if it has traveled too far and lost itself on the journey. You force yourself to eat because that is what is expected. Each bite is a duty, not a pleasure. You chew, and the food dissolves into tasteless paste. The honey is too sweet, the bread too dense, the meat already cold. You are reminded with every mouthful that you are alive and supposed to be grateful for it. Outside, the city stirs. You can hear the muffled clatter of carts in the street below, the calls of merchants, the distant sound of bells from a nearby chapel. None of this feels quite real to you. It is as if you are trapped behind glass, watching your own life play out in silent, disconnected scenes. You wonder, not for the first time, what it would be like to simply walk out the door and never return. But you do not move. Queens do not walk out. They are escorted, paraded, guarded like precious cargo. As you dress with the help of two silent maids, you notice your body again. It is heavier than it was yesterday. You blame the bed, the weather, the unending procession of troubles that are your daily bread. Your reflection in the mirror is sharp, unforgiving. The circles under your eyes are not easily hidden. The paleness of your cheeks not so easily remedied by rouge. The gowns they bring are beautiful but suffocating. You choose the least offensive shade and allow yourself to be laced and buttoned and pinned into another version of yourself, one that will be presented to the world. There is a dullness in your limbs, a slackness in your spirit. You push it aside, as you always do. You are the Queen of Naples, and you must rule. There are petitions to hear, disputes to settle, alliances to consider. But all you can think about is the persistent chill in your bones, the way your joints refuse to bend, the hollow taste of the morning meal. You make your way to the council chamber, each step an act of will, each breath a small rebellion against the mounting sense of something being deeply wrong. No one will ask how you feel. You are not meant to feel. You are meant to endure. You smile, or at least your face arranges itself into the approximation of a smile, and the day begins. Outside, the sky is overcast, the sun barely more than a rumor. Inside, your world is a pageant of obligation, every gesture rehearsed, every word weighed, and through it all, the sense lingers. Something in you is off balance, out of tune, a subtle discord that only you can hear. You promise yourself you will mention it to your physicians, later, perhaps, when time permits. But time, as you are about to learn, is the one luxury you cannot command. You begin to notice it not as a sudden blow, but as a slow, insidious unraveling. It creeps into your life with the persistence of damp in the walls, an unwelcome guest that you cannot turn away. At first, it is only a whisper, an ache here, a shiver there, the faintest suggestion that something is amiss in the well rehearsed machinery of your existence. You are, after all, Queen of Naples. You are not supposed to fall ill. Illness is for peasants, for the frail, for the forgotten, not for you. But reality, as it so often does, ignores your titles and your crowns. The ache in your joints, which you once dismissed as the price of too many hours spent in stiff backed chairs and endless council meetings, grows more pronounced. You find yourself rubbing your wrists beneath the table, flexing your fingers, as if that could banish the creeping stiffness. Your head feels heavy, filled with cotton and fog, making even the simplest tasks feel like insurmountable challenges. It is still possible at this stage to pretend. You are practiced in the art of endurance. You have outlasted husbands, rivals, traitors, and more than a few attempted poisonings. What is a little pain? You tell yourself it will pass. You listen to the petitions, you sign the decrees, you nod politely when your advisors drone on about matters that once held your interest but now seem remote and meaningless. Your mind drifts more often, your focus wavers. The words of your courtiers blur together into a monotone drone, a dull background noise to the growing chorus of discomfort inside your own body. The rumors start almost immediately, because they always do. The court is a living, breathing organism, and it senses weakness the way a hound smells blood. You see the sideways glances, the huddled conversations that end abruptly when you enter a room. You know they are talking about you, weighing your pallor against your usual vigor, speculating on the cause of your fatigue. Some whisper of a curse, others of poison. There are always those who would rather believe in the dramatic than in the mundane realities of failing flesh. You try to hide the signs as best you can. You rise a little later, retire a little earlier, blame the exhaustion on late nights spent tending to matters of state. You decline invitations to banquets, pleading urgent business or a need for quiet contemplation. The truth is that the thought of food nauseates you. The thought of crowds exhausts you. Every sound is too loud, every light too bright. Even the laughter of your ladies in waiting grates on your nerves, sharp as broken glass. Still, you persist. That is what is expected. To do otherwise would be to admit weakness, to open the door to the wolves who circle always at the edges of power. You smile, more tightly now, less convincingly. You try to find comfort in routine, but the routine itself becomes a prison. You dread the mornings when the heaviness in your limbs is at its worst. You dread the nights when fever creeps in and chills chase it from room to room. You find no rest in sleep. Your dreams are fragmented, filled with images of crumbling walls and dark water rising. You call for your physicians, though you do not trust them. One is a man of science who mutters about humors and balances and prescribes foul tasting concoctions that leave your tongue numb and your stomach churning. Another is a devotee of the old ways who recommends leeches and bleeding and prayers to long forgotten saints. A third is simply afraid, and that fear infects his every action, as if he is waiting for the moment when your illness becomes a matter for chroniclers rather than healers. They debate at your bedside, arguing over the best course of action, each convinced of his own expertise and the foolishness of the others. You listen to them with growing impatience, your body growing weaker with every passing day. You agree to their treatments because refusing would require more energy than you possess. They leave you with bruises from the leeches, with a mouth stained purple from herbal infusions, with a sense of despair that is harder to swallow than any medicine. The court continues on, as it must. Affairs of state do not pause for your suffering. Ambassadors come and go. Treaties are signed. Disputes are arbitrated. You force yourself to participate, to play your part, but you are no longer a queen so much as an actor, reading lines from a play you no longer believe in. Your counselors become bolder in your absence. Decisions made without your input, alliances forged and broken in hushed voices that you can barely hear through the haze of fever. There are moments, brief, flickering moments, when you allow yourself to hope that it is only exhaustion, that a few days of rest will restore you. But the hope is as thin and insubstantial as mist. The ache in your bones deepens. The fire in your veins burns hotter. You begin to lose track of time. Days blend into nights, nights into days, an endless procession of pain and confusion. The world narrows to the space of your bed, the circle of faces that lean over you with concern or calculation or sometimes open avarice. You have always known that your position is precarious, that power in this world is a mask worn over the face of death. You did not expect, however, that your own body would betray you so thoroughly. You begin to understand, in a way you never did before, why your subjects fear illness more than war, why plague terrifies more than armies. There is no enemy to face, no battle to be won. There is only the slow, inexorable decline, the knowledge that each day brings you closer to an end that will not be glorious or memorable, but merely inevitable. And still, you are queen. You must endure for as long as you can. But already, you sense that something fundamental has changed, that the machinery of your life is winding down, that the story is slipping out of your grasp. You would think, given the centuries of tradition and learning that drape the shoulders of every physician in Christendom, that your sickbed would be a place of wisdom and calm. You imagine, perhaps, in a world kinder or more organized, that your bedside would fill with measured tones, gentle hands, quiet certainty. You imagine healing balms and reassuring murmurs, the business of recovery proceeding with the dignity owed to a queen. You imagine, and you are wrong. Instead, you find yourself an unwilling audience to a spectacle, equal parts academic disputation, theatrical farce, and, on occasion, open warfare. You lie half propped on a stack of pillows, far too many, far too soft, your head swimming with fever and with the heavy, musty scent of lavender, which your lady in waiting sprinkles with dogged optimism. Around you, the chamber becomes a stage. On it, three of the most learned men in Naples, men whom you have rewarded with gold, with land, with the honor of proximity, proceed to insult one another with elaborate, creative venom. The first, Master Pietro, is tall, severe, and equipped with the kind of facial hair that inspires confidence in old widows. He is a man of the modern world, which is to say, the 14th century. He references books written in languages you never learned and invokes the authority of ancient Greeks with the easy certainty of someone who has never doubted his own intelligence. He insists, always insists, that your illness is a matter of imbalance. Your black bile overwhelms your blood. Your phlegm drowns your fire. Your humors stage a riot in your veins. For this, he prescribes leeches and bleeding. Every day, he suggests, should begin with the sound of your own blood dripping into a bowl, preferably before breakfast. The second, Master Giovanni, is as round and cheerful as his rival is lean and severe. He believes, with the confidence of a child who has never seen winter, that nature herself offers every cure. He pushes upon you potions so bitter that you suspect their principal ingredient is regret. He orders poultices for your chest, your head, your feet, each more pungent than the last. He consults with your apothecary, and together they invent new ways to make your chamber smell like the market on the hottest summer day. He quotes Galen and Hippocrates, yes, but also every grandmother and fishwife he has ever met, offering remedies for your cough and chills with a certainty that makes you miss the days when you were only bored. The third, Father Lorenzo, is the quietest, but perhaps the most dangerous. He is not, strictly speaking, a physician, but he wields the power of the church, and therefore his counsel is never ignored. He is convinced, quietly, grimly, inevitably, that your suffering is a sign, a message, a lesson delivered by the hand of God. He recommends prayer, fasting, and a regimen of self denial that would reduce a lesser woman to a skeleton before the fever could do its work. He offers holy water, relics, the muttered Latin of exorcism, and, when all else fails, the comfort of confession. Sometimes, in the dark hours, you wonder if it is comfort he offers or an invitation to begin making your peace. They bicker, they debate, they glare at one another over your prostrate form, raising their voices until your head throbs and your patience wears thinner than the bed linen. Master Pietro rails at Master Giovanni for trusting in superstition and peasant magic. Master Giovanni mocks Master Pietro's obsession with bloodletting, suggesting that soon there will be more blood in bowls than in your body. Father Lorenzo looks on, patient as stone, praying under his breath for deliverance from your illness or from your physicians. It is never clear. The remedies come one after another. Leeches cling to your skin in dark, writhing patches, leaving behind a map of bruises and embarrassment. You swallow tinctures that numb your tongue and cause your stomach to rebel. You endure poultices that burn, and compresses that freeze, and incense that makes you cough harder than the illness itself. Sometimes, in your fevered haze, you wonder if the disease is a plot, the cure a joke, and the doctors merely sadists in expensive robes. Each man keeps a careful record of his interventions, hoping that, should you recover, his name will be immortalized in song and story, or, failing that, inscribed upon your tombstone. None of them wish to be the physician who let the queen slip away. Each is motivated by self preservation as much as by any regard for your health. When the treatments fail to produce any improvement, and they always fail, their arguments grow more desperate. They invoke new theories, new saints, new flavors of despair. Through all this, you remain silent, too weak to do more than turn your head away, too proud to let them see your fear. You notice the way your ladies in waiting linger at the edges of the room, clutching rosaries and exchanging glances. You see the way your advisors check the pulse of the court, trying to predict whether they should begin currying favor with your potential successors. The atmosphere thickens with anticipation and with dread. At night, when the physicians are finally dismissed, you are left alone with your thoughts, your fever, and the cloying aftertaste of a dozen failed cures. You wonder if your body is simply tired, tired of being treated like a battlefield, tired of being the subject of experiment, tired of being the vessel through which three men hope to prove themselves right. Perhaps, you think, the worst part is not the pain, or the weakness, or even the creeping sense of mortality. Perhaps the worst part is the sense of helplessness, the knowledge that, for all your power and privilege, you are reduced to a kind of splendid meat, poked and prodded and argued over, as if you are already halfway to being a corpse. You close your eyes and wish, not for health, but for quiet. But even that is beyond your reach. Once, your presence at court was the axis around which everything spun. Each gesture of yours, each half smile, each frown, each momentary pause was weighed, discussed, and imitated by those eager to curry favor or at least avoid displeasure. But illness has a way of warping the fabric of social order, and as your strength wanes, you become less a sun and more an ominous cloud, heavy and unpredictable. You notice it first in the way the great hall sounds different. A subtle hush settles over the marble whenever you enter, a thinning of voices that would almost be respectful if not for the dread in the air. At first, it is only a handful of glances, quick, nervous, darting glances exchanged over goblets of wine, glances that slip away as soon as you raise your eyes. Your courtiers, those seasoned practitioners of the art of flattery, suddenly seem less eager to sit at your table, to catch your attention, to risk catching something. It is almost funny, in a way you are too tired to enjoy. The very people who fought for a place at your side now invent errands on the other side of the hall. Even your most loyal advisors keep a certain physical distance, as though proximity itself might be fatal. You watch as groups form in corners, little cliques of noblemen and noblewomen, heads bowed close, their hands moving in small, secretive gestures. Occasionally, you catch your own name carried on the draft, delivered with the particular relish reserved for the suffering of the powerful. Once you overhear a snippet since the fever began, and the conversation ceases abruptly as you turn your head. Their faces rearrange themselves into masks of concern, but the truth is already exposed, fleeting and ugly. Sycophants are the first to vanish. Those who once praised the taste of your wine, the color of your gown, the beauty of your voice, now become strangely absent when it is time for an audience. They send apologies, offers of prayers, gifts of fruit or flowers, anything but their actual company. The more ambitious courtiers sense opportunity, and they hover on the periphery of your vision, Not so much offering support as taking careful notes on your decline, preparing for the political rebalancing to come. Each cough, each pallid turn of your cheek becomes the subject of speculation and calculation. There is an undeniable air of anticipation in the palace. The older nobles, who have weathered more than one royal death, become somber and ceremonial, as if rehearsing for a morning they will have to perform with suitable gravitas. The younger ones are livelier, almost excited, their conversations humming with possibility. Your illness has become the court's favorite entertainment, far more interesting than diplomacy or even scandal. Nothing draws attention quite like a dying queen. Your ladies in waiting do their best to maintain the fiction of normalcy, but you see the fear flickering at the edges of their eyes. They have begun to draw lots for who must sleep closest to you, who must bathe your forehead, who must collect your soiled linens. The unlucky ones are quick to offer a tight lipped smile. The lucky ones disappear entirely, claimed by imaginary family emergencies or sudden religious obligations. The space around your bed grows wider each day, a kind of invisible moat dug by dread. Rumors spread as rapidly as your fever. One day, a maid whispers that you have been poisoned by a foreign envoy. The next, the palace kitchen is full of talk about an old curse, something involving a slighted lover and a relic best left undisturbed. The physicians, those three scholarly crows, are not above contributing to the chorus, each pushing their own theory with barely concealed glee. Perhaps it is a fever from the east. Perhaps it is a malady of the blood. Perhaps it is divine retribution for some past sin. Each theory gathers adherents until the palace seethes with superstition and anxiety. Your closest advisors attempt to remain neutral, their expressions carved from stone. They visit, dutifully, but their questions become more perfunctory and their advice more cautious. You catch them glancing past you as if already seeking the next lodestar. Politics does not pause for illness. Each day brings new letters, new problems, and new alliances, but you sense the decisions slipping further from your grasp. Orders are given in your name, but you are not always consulted. Your signature, once a source of authority, is now just an administrative flourish to legitimize someone else's intentions. When ambassadors from distant lands come to pay respects, the protocol changes. You are shielded by a screen, your voice thin and reedy from behind embroidered silk, your figure glimpsed only briefly. The greetings are careful, the departures hasty. News of your decline, you suspect, will travel farther and faster than any diplomatic courier. Already, you picture rival kings and queens raising a toast to your fever, or at least to the chaos it promises for your kingdom. Meanwhile, outside the palace, the city of Naples whispers its own stories. Commoners stand in the markets, trading rumors like precious spices. Some pray for your recovery, fearing what a power vacuum might bring. Others simply wish for a new beginning, less shadowed by war and famine. The bells of the churches ring for your health, but the prayers feel perfunctory, as if God Himself is bored with the repetition. In your more lucid moments, you marvel at the machinery of court life, the way it churns forward, lubricated by fear, ambition, and a dash of hope. You are both the engine and the obstacle, the object of pity and the target of anticipation. Your sickness is no longer a private battle, it is a public spectacle, dissected and debated in every corridor, every chapel, every bedroom in the palace. You wonder if you ever truly had friends here, or only players in a never ending performance. Isolation becomes your only certainty. The world narrows, not just to your bed, but to your own skin, your own fevered mind. You remember a time when the world came to you for answers. Now they come for confirmation that the end is near, that a chapter is closing, that history is about to turn its page. No one says it, not yet, but you can hear it in their silences, their careful words, their calculated retreats. They are already learning how to live in a world without you. You have always understood that food at court is theater. Your table, groaning under the weight of silver platters and sculpted pastries, was as much a display of power as your crown. Feasts were orchestrated as carefully as campaigns, every roast and tart and sugared fig an argument for your vitality and the stability of your reign. You remember, almost fondly, how you once endured hours of ceremonial eating, smiling through mouthfuls of peacock and candied almonds, while ambassadors watched for the smallest sign of favor or displeasure. There were days, not so long ago, when appetite seemed a duty, a pleasure, and a weapon all at once. Now, food is a punishment. The mere sight of a servant entering with the breakfast tray is enough to make your stomach twist. You cannot remember the last time you felt hunger as anything other than nausea's close cousin. The sense that once promised comfort, warm bread, spiced wine, honey on cheese, now crowd your senses, overwhelming, sickly, insistent. The tray is set with practiced ceremony on your bedside table, but already you are calculating how little you must eat to satisfy appearances. You pick at your food, moving morsels around the plate, feigning interest while each bite sits like a stone in your mouth. Taste abandons you slowly, almost politely at first. The sweetness of fruits, the savor of stewed meat, the salt of olives all blur into a single, flat monotone. You chew, you swallow, but every sensation is blunted, muffled, as if your tongue is wrapped in cloth. The world loses its edges. Each meal becomes an exercise in self deception, a farce you play for the benefit of those still watching. There is no satisfaction, only a weary resignation. Even water tastes wrong, somehow both metallic and stale, leaving your lips dry and your throat raw. The kitchens, in their anxiety to please, only make things worse. Each day they send up new concoctions, each more elaborate than the last, as if one unexpected combination of spices might trick your failing senses back to life. Pies stuffed with venison and pears, pigeons roasted in cinnamon, sugared violets scattered on soft white cheese. Each dish is presented with trembling pride, by a succession of cooks, none of whom dare meet your eye for long. You imagine them gathered below stairs, gambling on which flavorless masterpiece will finally tempt the appetite of the dying queen. You learn to dread these meals, to dread the hopeful looks on the faces of your ladies and the anxious, darting glances of your physicians. Your refusal to eat is met with an arsenal of arguments, ranging from gentle encouragement to threats and bribery. Master Giovanni is the worst, his voice syrupy with concern, pressing cups of broth to your lips, insisting that your strength depends on nourishment. Master Pietro is more blunt, reminding you that a queen who cannot eat is a queen who cannot rule. Even Father Lorenzo has an opinion. He gently suggests that fasting is a path to spiritual clarity, but surely now is not the season for such piety. Their concern would be touching if it did not irritate you so. Your body is not theirs to command, and it has chosen rebellion over compliance. You try, sometimes, to explain the strangeness of your sensations, that nothing tastes right, that every bite feels like dust. But their faces only cloud with confusion, or worse, pity. You stop explaining. You simply press the food to your lips, force down a few bites, and hope they will be satisfied. You begin to measure your days not in meals, but in the spaces between them. The dread of breakfast is quickly replaced by the dread of lunch, then dinner. Even the evening wine, a pleasure and solace for so many years, becomes a chore, its warmth now burning and foreign in your mouth. The court takes notice, of course. Whispers multiply. The queen grows thin. The queen is wasting away. The queen has lost her appetite for life as well as for food. In the hallways, your absence from the feasts becomes a convenient metaphor for your absence from governance. As your appetite fades, so too does your strength. You find yourself unable to sit upright for long, and the weight of your own body becomes oppressive. The days pass in a hazy half sleep, punctuated by the soft clatter of untouched plates and the quiet sighs of those tasked with feeding you. You are surrounded by abundance, yet starved in every way that matters. Memories of food become more vivid than the food itself. You remember the honeyed figs of your childhood, stolen in secret from the gardens, the rich oily bread your first husband favored, the sharp tang of new wine shared with your sister late at night. These flavors come to you in dreams, bright and real, but vanish with the dawn. Your waking world is gray and tasteless, stripped of joy and texture. Sometimes, late at night, when the palace is silent and your mind wanders down corridors of regret, you wonder if your body is simply tired of the performance, if it is choosing, in its own stubborn way, to bow out gracefully, refusing to keep up appearances any longer. You lie in your great bed, surrounded by more comfort than most will ever know, and feel yourself growing lighter and lighter, as if you could simply float away on a breath. You suppose there is a kind of poetry in it, the queen who could feast like an empress, reduced at last to crumbs and water, a living ghost at her own table. You wonder if the chroniclers will mention it, or if it will become just another footnote in the long, tedious record of royal decline. And so, each day, you play your part, dutifully nibbling, dutifully swallowing, dutifully fading. The food is as flavorless as your future, and the act of eating, like the act of living, is stripped down to habit and hope. Fever does not announce itself with ceremony. It does not stride in, heralded by trumpets or ominous clouds. Instead, it sidles up to you, unnoticed, as if it had been waiting in the dark corners of your chamber for just the right moment to slip beneath your skin. The first time you feel it, you mistake it for an excess of blankets, the heavy tapestries trapping the day's sun and the night's breath. You kick them away, but the heat follows you, clings to you, seeps into your bones, and then radiates outward, like some secret fire you cannot quench. Your body betrays you in increments. One evening you lie shivering under three thick furs, teeth chattering, the cold seeping in despite the smothering weight. By morning, you are parched and sweating, the bed sheets clinging to your body, your hair damp and stringy, your nightgown plastered to your skin. You begin to dread the rhythm of your own flesh, chills that bite into your muscles, then waves of heat that leave you dizzy and gasping. You drift between extremes, never comfortable, never at peace, never able to forget the constant, crawling sense that something inside you is unraveling. Your skin, once the subject of so many tedious compliments, now itches and burns. You scratch without thinking, leaving faint red marks along your arms and collarbone. Your face glows with an unhealthy flush, and your eyes become glassy, unfocused. Even the dim light from the hallway stabs at your temples, igniting headaches that seem to pulse with every heartbeat. Sometimes you feel the fever as a pressure in your skull, as if your thoughts themselves are swelling, threatening to burst. The fever comes in waves, sometimes so high that you slip into brief, vivid dreams even while your eyes are open. Your memories tangle with hallucinations. You see your mother at the foot of your bed, her face shifting in the flicker of candlelight. You hear the bells of distant churches tolling your name. You try to speak, to ask for water, for relief, but your voice comes out as a croak. The world around you blurs and then snaps into cruel, relentless clarity. The ceiling's cracks, the rough weave of your linens, the anxious faces that lean over you, always just beyond your grasp. Your physicians, never ones to waste a new symptom, gather like vultures. Master Pietro, gleaming with the satisfaction of a theory confirmed, points to your fever as proof that your humors are indeed in mutiny. He prescribes more bleeding, more leeches, more incomprehensible rituals with hot irons and cups. Master Giovanni tries to combat the heat with bitter herbal draughts and vinegar soaked cloths, the scent of which makes you gag. Father Lorenzo is not to be outdone. He sprinkles holy water across your brow, muttering prayers for deliverance, as if your fever were a demon to be exorcised. Their combined efforts do little more than shift your misery from one hour to the next. You become an object lesson for the court. Your condition is discussed as if you were not present, as if you were already halfway into legend. Pages scurry to and fro, delivering updates to anyone with enough rank or curiosity to inquire. Your fever becomes a kind of entertainment, a grim distraction from the monotony of palace life. The cooks, the servants, even the stable boys hear stories of the queen's ravings, her strange demands in the dead of night, her fits of laughter or weeping when the fever is at its worst. When your mind is not clouded by the heat, you are simply exhausted. The act of turning your head, of shifting your legs beneath the covers, costs more effort than you care to admit. Your mouth is always dry, but drinking makes you cough, the water harsh and metallic on your tongue. The world outside your room shrinks until it is just the limits of your vision, the faint patterns in the stone, the scratch of linen against your skin. Sometimes your dreams are peaceful. You find yourself in gardens you have never seen, under skies that never existed. You walk with loved ones, long dead, who greet you as if nothing is wrong. Other times, your dreams turn to nightmares. Flames lick at the walls, unseen enemies stalk the corridors, and faceless priests chant dirges you cannot escape. In your fever, it is impossible to tell which world is real and which is the invention of your mind's slow collapse. You try to keep a grip on yourself, to retain some dignity in the midst of all this. You snap at your attendants for fussing. You insist on small courtesies, a clean shift, a cool cloth, a moment of quiet. But you know that you are slipping, that the fever is eroding you, dissolving your resolve, one bead of sweat at a time. Each day feels longer than the last, the heat and chills stretching time into something elastic, interminable. Those who come to see you do so quickly, as if your condition might be contagious, through glances alone. Your chamber is quieter now, but you are never truly alone. There is always someone at the edge of your vision, a nurse with trembling hands, a priest with anxious eyes, a servant girl whose face you do not know. They bring you water, change your linens, whisper their own prayers when they think you cannot hear. In the rare moments of clarity, you think of all that you are losing, your appetite, your sense of taste, your strength, your position at the heart of the court, each stripped away, layer by layer, until only the fever remains, burning away the last fragments of self. You cling to small comforts, a letter from your sister, a favorite song hummed softly by a maid, the brush of cool air from a newly opened window. But nothing can outlast the fever. It is the new sovereign in your chamber, and you are its captive, subject to its caprice. And so the days melt together in a relentless procession of heat, sweat, and shivering. You become a shadow, flickering on the edge of your own life, half queen, half corpse, waiting for the fever to either break or consume you entirely. Night used to be a respite. In the early days of your reign, it was in the quiet after dark that you reclaimed something of yourself, free from the eyes and ears of court, able at last to loosen the tight bonds of ceremony and caution. Now, night is simply another ordeal, one more arena where your failing body is on display, except now your only audience is yourself, and you are an unforgiving critic. It begins subtly, like everything else about your illness. You notice that sleep evades you just a little at first. A single hour lost here or there, a long moment staring at the flickering shadows cast by the dying fire. You tell yourself it is nothing, that tomorrow you will rest, that your mind will quiet if only you are patient. But tomorrow brings the same restlessness, and then the next night, and the next. Soon you begin to lose count of how many nights you have lain awake, eyes open, counting the cracks in the ceiling for the thousandth time. The palace is not kind to the sleepless. At night, the great stones release all the cold they have gathered during the day, making your chamber both frigid and oppressive, the air so thick with silence that even your breath seems too loud. Sometimes you hear the wind rattling at the windows, the ancient timbers of the ceiling groaning as if in sympathy with your pain. Other times, it is the tiny, persistent noises of human habitation, the shuffle of slippers in a distant corridor, the low murmur of servants exchanging gossip, the muted clang of armor from a sleepless guard at his post. Your bed, once a throne, is now a prison. No position is comfortable. You shift and turn, chasing the fleeting promise of relief, only to find yourself tangled in sheets that cling to your damp skin. Your body aches in ways that have nothing to do with the fever, muscles tense from too many hours in the same unnatural pose, shoulders and hips burning with a dull, insistent pain. You become hyper aware of every discomfort, every itch, every irregularity in the mattress, every draft that sneaks under the door. Worse than the physical discomfort, though, is the tyranny of your own thoughts. In the endless hours before dawn, your mind drifts down corridors you avoid in the day. You remember slights, real and imagined, committed by those you trusted. You replay decisions made in haste, words spoken in anger, moments of weakness you thought forgotten. Your regrets become your only companions, flickering and multiplying in the candlelight. The faces of those you have lost visit you: parents, lovers, allies, enemies. Sometimes you see their faces so clearly that you reach out, only to grasp at empty air. Occasionally, you slip into a shallow, restless doze, filled with anxious dreams that evaporate as soon as you wake. These are not the soft, forgetful dreams of youth, but wild, ragged visions, your throne room filling with water, the court drowning as you watch helplessly from above, running down endless corridors, chased by shadows that never reveal their faces. You wake from these dreams with your heart pounding, your skin clammy, your breath catching in your throat. When sleep is truly impossible, you try to distract yourself with small rituals. You count the number of stones in the nearest wall, though you always lose track. You recite prayers you memorized as a child, mouthing them silently, bargaining for just a brief return to unconsciousness. You listen to the night sounds and try to invent stories about their source. Was that a fox on the roof, or merely the wind? Was that the sound of someone crying in the next room, or only your imagination? Your mind is a treacherous ally, eager to fill the silence with worries and ghosts. Sometimes your attendants keep you company, though their exhaustion is as plain as your own. They sit quietly by your side, pretending not to notice when you toss and turn, ready with a cool cloth or a cup of watered wine. Their presence is a comfort, and yet you can see the toll your illness is taking on them, the dark circles under their eyes, the stiffness in their movements, the way they avoid your gaze as if your suffering might infect them too. You grow to resent the night. The hours between dusk and dawn stretch impossibly long, each minute measured in the slow dripping of wax from a candle, the steady tick of your heart, the mounting pressure behind your eyes. You find yourself longing for morning, not because it brings relief, but because at least then you can pretend to function, can take refuge in the routines and obligations that, for all their emptiness, provide a scaffolding for your crumbling self. But the nights are inescapable, and they begin to erode the boundary between waking and dreaming. You drift through the days in a haze, memories of the night bleeding into the sunlight. You become forgetful, irritable, so weary that even sitting upright is an act of defiance. The court notices, of course. They notice everything now. Your voice is rough from disuse. Your hands tremble when you lift a cup. They say nothing, but you see the unease in their faces, the way they lean in just a little, as if listening for the rattle in your breath. As the sleeplessness deepens, so does your sense of isolation. The world outside your chamber seems further away with every passing night. News from the city, from distant lands, even from other rooms in the palace, arrives as if from another planet, impossible to care about. You are wrapped in layers of cloth, of silence, of dread. You begin to think of yourself less as a queen and more as a patient, a specimen, an object of concern and curiosity. And so, the sleepless nights accumulate, each one leaving you a little weaker, a little more frayed at the edges. You watch the candles burn down, the moon drift across the sky, the stars fade in the slow, gray approach of morning. You close your eyes, exhausted, but sleep is a stranger now. Your mind hums with worry, with fear, with the weight of 1,000 small losses. You wonder how long this can go on. You wonder, sometimes, if it already has. And so you wait, night after night, for a rest that never comes. You once believed, perhaps naively, that the core of power was control, not just over the affairs of your kingdom, but over yourself. In the long hours of council, you learned to school your face, to keep your hands steady when tempers flared, to hold your voice calm even as the world shifted beneath your feet. You thought that strength of will was the answer to every challenge, that your body was simply the obedient servant of your mind, always ready to respond to your commands. Illness disabuses you of this illusion. It starts quietly, as most betrayals do. You notice first the unsteadiness in your limbs, the subtle tremors in your fingers as you attempt to lift a goblet or sign your name. You drop things more often now, A comb, a letter, a half eaten pear, and when you bend to retrieve them, your movements are slow, deliberate, as if you are moving underwater. Your legs, once strong from riding and dancing, now buckle when you attempt to rise too quickly. Sometimes you simply sit and wait, hoping the sensation will pass, that your muscles will remember what they are supposed to do. They rarely do. It is as if your body has become a recalcitrant servant, obeying only when it pleases and never without complaint. There are days when you cannot lift your head from the pillow without help, when even the effort of turning from one side to the other leaves you breathless. Your world shrinks again, this time to the boundaries of your own skin, a prison you can no longer command, only endure. Your attendants try to hide their concern, but you see it in their faces. They whisper as they help you bathe, as they comb your hair, as they change your linens yet again, each movement slower and more cautious. They carry you now, or at least guide you, from bed to chair and back again, speaking in the gentle, coaxing tones reserved for children and the dying. They call you Majesty still, but the word sounds hollow, emptied of its former weight. The indignities multiply. You lose track of time, dozing fitfully throughout the day, waking to find yourself in strange positions, your limbs twisted awkwardly, your mouth dry and lips cracked. Sometimes you wake to find that your body has rebelled in more obvious ways. Soiled sheets, damp night clothes, a sour smell that no amount of rose water can disguise. Your ladies, once full of admiration and envy, now look away as they tend to you, their eyes fixed on the wall, their voices barely above a whisper. You try, in the beginning, to maintain your dignity. You apologize, you attempt to assist, to make light of your condition. But your body is no longer interested in your pride. There are days when you cannot control your bladder, when you cannot hold down even the smallest morsel of food, when the spasms in your muscles are so violent that you bite your own tongue. The pain is sharp, but the humiliation is sharper. You begin to dread the touch of others, the soft cloth against your skin, the pity in their eyes. Even your mind is not immune. The fever and sleeplessness conspire to rob you of clarity. You lose words mid-sentence, forget the names of people you have known all your life, become confused by the simplest questions. Some days, you are convinced you are in another place, another time. You call for your mother, for lost friends, for old advisors. Sometimes you call for enemies long dead, demanding they explain themselves. Your voice is strange in your own ears, thinner, higher, stripped of authority. There are moments of lucidity, rare and precious, when you remember who you are and what you once were. You try to grasp these moments, to write a letter, to give an order, to reclaim a piece of your former self. But even these small victories are fleeting. The pen slips from your fingers. Your words tangle and escape you. Your attendants nod and smile, humoring you as one might humor a beloved but senile relative. You see the relief in their eyes when you slip back into sleep. The physicians are relentless in their interventions. They prop you up with pillows, rub foul smelling oils into your joints, force your jaw open to drip medicine between your lips. They argue in the background, their voices rising and falling like waves. You are no longer the subject of their concern, but the object discussed, debated, poked, and prodded. You feel like livestock at market, inspected and evaluated, your body a collection of symptoms and failures. The rituals of royalty persist, even as your body betrays you. You are dressed each morning in fresh linen, your hair braided and adorned, your rings slipped onto fingers that can barely hold them. When visitors are permitted, you are propped up in bed, your face powdered, your lips stained with wine to give the illusion of health. The mask fools no one, least of all yourself. You sit, still and silent, as they offer platitudes and prayers, your body aching, your mind adrift. At times, you wonder if this is your punishment, a final lesson in humility for one who is held too tightly to power. The world you once ruled now shrinks to a handful of faces, a circle of lamplight, a single bed. Your body is a battleground, and you are losing inch by inch. And yet, you endure. You tell yourself that this too will pass, that you will wake one morning restored to strength and purpose. But even as you cling to hope, you feel the truth settling over you, heavy as a shroud. Control is a memory. Your body belongs to the illness now, and you are simply along for the ride. You close your eyes and wait for morning, knowing that it will bring nothing new, only the slow, relentless erosion of the self you once commanded so easily. You are a queen in name, but your body answers to no one, as if losing control of your body were not indignity enough. Your illness now decides to diversify its torments, parading a bewildering assortment of new symptoms across the fragile stage of your flesh. You wake one morning, though morning is only a vague suggestion, as you have long since lost any meaningful sense of time, to find that your hands are no longer your own. The joints are swollen and red, every knuckle burning as if tiny embers have been tucked beneath the skin. When you try to move your fingers, pain radiates up your arms, sharp and sudden, like the bite of a snake. You marvel grimly at the creativity of suffering. Bruises appear where none should be. You discover blue and purple blotches on your thighs, your stomach, your arms, in places you can only see by angling a polished mirror in the right light. At first, you imagine that your attendants, in their clumsy attempts to move you, have pressed too hard, but the bruises multiply even when you have not been touched. Some are small and circular, others stretch in odd, ragged shapes, as if the fever is mapping its progress in cryptic language. Your physicians peer at these with furrowed brows, exchanging urgent whispers and furtive glances, but their conclusions, if they have any, are never shared with you. Worse still is the rash, a constellation of red, itchy spots that bloom along your shoulders, down your back, and across your chest. No salve or tincture brings relief. You scratch until your skin breaks, leaving angry, bleeding marks. Your maids try to restrain you gently, but your hands, The weak are determined. The itch is all consuming, a madness of the flesh. Each night you drift into shallow, fevered sleep, only to wake and find that you have scratched yourself raw. The scent of blood, mixed with the bitter tang of herbal ointments, follows you everywhere. Your mouth is not spared. Ulcers erupt along your gums, small and white and agonizing. Every word you speak feels as if it is dragged across knives. Even the gentlest sip of water burns. Your lips crack and split, oozing small drops of blood that stain your sheets. The physicians debate whether this is a sign of internal imbalance or something darker, a corruption of the spirit, perhaps, or the mark of a curse. Father Lorenzo brings a new relic to press against your brow, his prayers growing longer and more urgent. You begin to dread his visits as much as the pain itself. You notice, too, that your breath has become foul. Not simply the stale odor of illness, but something deeper and more putrid, as if the rot inside you is finally making its presence known to the outside world. Your attendants try not to recoil, but the way they avert their faces as they lean close to help you drink is unmistakable. You want to apologize, to reassure them that you are still here, still yourself, but shame sticks in your throat, choking you more than any fever. And then there is the blood. It appears first as a faint pink in the basin after you cough, then deepens to crimson, thick and startling, staining your handkerchief, spattering the linen. Your coughing fits become more violent, sometimes leaving you gasping, tears streaming down your cheeks. The physicians argue over the source: lungs, throat, stomach, none of their guesses offering comfort. Master Pietro mutters about corrupted humors and bad air. Master Giovanni suggests poultices made from roots you have never heard of. Father Lorenzo, silent for once, simply makes the sign of the cross. The blood is not confined to your mouth. One evening, as you attempt to rise, you feel a strange wetness between your legs. At first, you think you have lost control again, but the crimson stain spreading across your nightgown tells another story. Your ladies, panic in their eyes, rush to clean you, whispering to each other in frantic, trembling voices. The physicians are summoned, but their faces are grim, their words evasive. You realize, with a cold clarity, that your body is breaking down in ways that no amount of prayer or potions can repair. Your senses betray you too. The world seems dimmer now, colors fading, sounds muffled and distorted. Light hurts your eyes. Every candle becomes a miniature sun, every whisper a thunderclap. At times, you hear voices no one else does: a child crying in the corridor, the bells of the city tolling in the dead of night, the distant call of your own name, urgent and insistent. You try to respond, but the words tangle on your ruined tongue. Through it all, your physicians continue their rituals. They prod your belly, peer into your mouth, examine your skin with a mixture of fascination and dread. They record every new symptom in their journals, as if documenting your decline might stave off its final act. They prescribe more medicines, more prayers, more useless interventions. Sometimes you think they are more invested in your disease than in your recovery. Each new symptom, a subject for debate, a puzzle to solve, a chapter in a book no one will ever read. You are aware, with a dull sense of irony, that you have become a kind of spectacle. Your illness is now the primary entertainment at court. Servants gossip about the latest developments. Courtiers trade rumors of your most recent affliction, and even your family sends fewer and fewer messengers, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of resignation. The queen is dying, they say. The queen is covered in sores. The queen bleeds from her mouth and whispers to shadows. You are no longer a person to them, but a cautionary tale. You catch glimpses of yourself in the polished metal of a mirror, and what you see is both familiar and alien. Your face, once proud and composed, is swollen and blotchy, marked by fever and fatigue. Your eyes are sunken, ringed with purple, staring out from a mask of suffering. Your hair, once the envy of the court, is lank and matted, clinging to your scalp in greasy strands. You look every inch the specter you have become, and months yet, through all of this, you are still here. Your heart beats on, stubborn and slow. You endure each new symptom, each new humiliation, because there is nothing else to do. You are the queen, yes, but more than that, you are a human body unraveling, one symptom at a time. The disease is relentless, inventive, determined to claim every part of you before it is finished. You lie back in your bed, the world spinning around you, and wonder, what will tomorrow bring? What new misery will arrive? What part of yourself will you lose next? There is no answer, only the endless march of symptoms and the steady, patient work of decay. If there is one thing you learn as you linger on the threshold between life and death, it is that the boundaries of human imagination, especially when fueled by desperation, are far wider than you once supposed. Your physicians, having exhausted every traditional method to little effect, now turn with earnest zeal to the bizarre, the outlandish, and the frankly absurd. You, meanwhile, are left to endure their frantic inventiveness, a captive participant in the great medieval pageant of medical folly. One morning, your fever barely receded. You are awakened not by the gentle clatter of silverware or the whispered prayers of your ladies in waiting, but by the acrid stench of burning hair. Master Pietro, whose faith in leeches and bloodletting has wavered in the face of your uncooperative humors, has decided that the solution is to singe away the evil vapors from your room. He parades around your chamber with a brazier full of smoldering herbs, sage, rosemary, hair clippings from a horse, for balance, he explains, and waves thick, choking clouds of smoke over your bed. The effect is immediate. You cough until your lips bleed, your eyes water uncontrollably, and for several minutes you consider whether suffocation might, in fact, be preferable to this particular brand of healing. When the air finally clears, Master Giovanni arrives bearing a new tonic, a miracle elixir composed of honey, vinegar, and a rare root imported at great expense from across the sea. It tastes, as nearly as you can tell, like mud mixed with regret. You are commanded to drink it in 3 gulps while reciting a prayer to Saint Blaise, patron of throats, and evidently those condemned to drink questionable substances. Giovanni insists this will drive the sickness from your deepest places, but all it does is drive you to retch weakly into a bowl of lavender water, the scent now forever ruined. As the days pass, their methods grow only more theatrical. Leeches, of course, remain a favorite, and you become so accustomed to their slick, cold presence on your flesh that you begin to imagine them as new pets. You give them names just to amuse yourself. One is called the Chancellor, another is the Usurper. They perform their duties with more diligence than most of your courtiers, and with about as much warmth. Bleeding is a near daily ritual. If you dare suggest that it is not helping, Master Pietro launches into a lecture on the 4 humors, the ancient Greeks, and the divine nature of suffering. There are cups for your blood, bowls for your vomit, basins for whatever else your body can be coaxed to expel. The color, thickness, and aroma of each are hotly debated. Your worth as a queen is momentarily replaced by your worth as a specimen, an honor you could have lived without. Then there are the poultices and compresses, pastes of crushed garlic, onion, and mustard seeds smeared on your chest until you smell like a poorly tended root cellar. Cloths soaked in urine, preferably from a red haired virgin, for reasons no one can satisfactorily explain, wrapped around your temples. Each time a new substance is applied to your skin, it is with the solemnity of a religious sacrament. You half expect someone to appear with incense and a hymn. No cure, however, is complete without the involvement of the church. Father Lorenzo, growing more alarmed with each passing day, insists that your illness is not merely of the body, but of the soul. He organizes a procession around your bed, chanting psalms and sprinkling you, your attendants, and the unfortunate cat who wandered in with holy water. You are presented with relics, splinters of the true cross, a tooth from a martyred saint, a piece of veil said to have once touched the Virgin Mary herself. These are pressed to your forehead, your hands, your heart. You are encouraged to confess your sins, to renounce your enemies, to fast for the redemption of your soul. It is unclear whether you are being healed or prepared for burial. But even this is not the end. At the height of your fever, a wandering friar is summoned, famous in the countryside for his cures. He arrives with a sack of frogs and a dead snake, which he proceeds to hang above your bed to draw out the poisons. He instructs your attendants to place crushed mint in your ears and a poultice of mud and sheep's wool on your chest. For 2 days, your room smells of pond and barnyard, and you imagine the servants below gossiping about the queen's transformation into a rural legend. And then comes the attempted exorcism. It is decided, without your input, that perhaps the root cause is supernatural. After all, what else could explain the failure of so many noble efforts? Father Lorenzo, with a trembling voice and a bottle of wine for courage, begins the rite, intoning Latin over your fevered body, casting out spirits real and imagined. Your attendants cower in the corners, crossing themselves furiously. You, too weak to protest, simply close your eyes and hope that if the spirits do leave, they will take your suffering with them. Through it all, you are expected to cooperate. Protest is met with patient condescension, or worse, the suggestion that your reluctance is a sign the disease has taken root in your will. The court keeps a careful record of each intervention. Should one prove miraculously effective, no one wants to miss their place in the annals of royal healing. Each failure is quickly rationalized. The herbs were not fresh enough, the prayers insufficiently sincere, the leeches not quite large enough. Sometimes, late at night, you find a kind of grim amusement in it all. You are a queen, and yet your fate rests in the hands of men who believe a toad can cure consumption, that bad air can be driven out with the right mixture of dung and roses. You wonder if future generations will laugh at their efforts or pity the desperation that animates them. Mostly, though, you simply endure day after day as each new absurdity is paraded before you. Your body is a battlefield, and the weapons grow stranger by the hour. You survive each assault not because you believe, but because there is nothing else to do. You let them leech, bleed, smoke, pray, and anoint, and when at last they are exhausted, you lie back in your bed, every inch of you throbbing, and wait for whatever madness comes next. And all the while, the disease, unimpressed, untouched, implacable, marches on. You spend days, then weeks, suspended in a state between hope and resignation, convinced that each new dawn might bring a reprieve. But it does not. Instead, the days blend into each other, a gray procession of pain, confusion, and the muffled sounds of life continuing just outside the reach of your senses. The world outside your chamber has shrunk to the width of your bed, your universe bounded by the careful steps of your attendants and the relentless ticking of the clock. At first, you fight against the idea that your story is nearing its conclusion. You muster the old habits of royalty, the stubborn refusal to admit weakness, the theatrical mask of composure you have worn for so long that it feels like your own face. You greet your physicians with icy courtesy, demand news from the council, insist on being updated about the affairs of your kingdom. For a while, this performance almost convinces you. Almost. But the truth, as it always does, seeps in. It arrives not as a revelation, but as a slow, unwelcome certainty. You feel it in the way your strength ebbs with every passing hour, in the deepening confusion that blurs your thoughts, in the way the simplest task, lifting a hand, forming a sentence, requires a monumental effort. You notice that your voice is thinner, your vision clouded, your body lighter and heavier all at once, as if you are made of fog and stone. You start to recognize the look in the eyes of those around you. Your maids are gentler now, their movements slower, as if afraid to jostle you too much, as if a touch could send you shattering. Their words are softer, laced with a tenderness that is almost unbearable. Even your physicians, so quick with lectures and remedies, have grown cautious. They no longer argue over your bed with the same urgency. Their conversations, when they think you are sleeping, are full of hesitant phrases. If she wakes, if she eats, if she lasts the night. Father Lorenzo visits more often, always with the air of a man performing a necessary but sorrowful duty. He brings with him the tools of his trade, a small flask of oil for the last rites, a well worn Bible, a prayer whispered half for your soul, half for his own peace of mind. He asks if you wish to confess. You do, though the sins you recall seem small and distant compared to the slow violence of your body's betrayal. Still, you speak of your failings, your regrets, your secret envies and petty cruelties. He listens, nodding, and assures you of God's forgiveness. It is a comfort in its way, though you suspect it is meant more for those who will survive you. Your thoughts grow more inward, circling like vultures around unfinished business and unspoken words. You remember the faces of those you have loved and lost, the old friends who vanished in the turbulence of court, the children you bore and the ones you buried. You remember laughter in sunlit gardens, arguments in echoing halls, a thousand moments, both great and trivial, that now rise unbidden in the feverish night. The kingdom outside fades into irrelevance. What matters now is memory, the small, stubborn fragments of a life lived in the shadow of crowns and catastrophe. There is a strange peace in this acceptance. The fears that haunted you for so long, the fear of losing power, of being betrayed, of failing your duty, have been eclipsed by something quieter, more absolute. The world will go on without you. The court will find another figurehead, another vessel for its ambitions. You, once the center of every calculation, are now just one more mortal on the long and undistinguished road to oblivion. You find yourself drawn to rituals, to the small acts that give shape to the shapeless days. You ask for old letters to be read aloud, for songs from your childhood, for the scent of lavender to fill the room. You ask for news of the outside world, but you no longer care about the answers. You try once or twice to write farewells, clumsy, rambling missives to friends and kin, but the effort exhausts you. In the end, you hope your silence will speak for you. The world around you shifts subtly as your illness becomes undeniable. More candles are lit in your chamber, their soft light casting gentle shadows on the walls. Your sheets are changed more frequently, your nightgowns fresher, your hair brushed and braided as if for a portrait. Visitors arrive with greater solemnity, bearing expressions of sorrow and vague concern. Some cry, others pray. Most leave quickly, as if unable to bear witness to the ending of a life they barely understood. Your dreams grow stranger, more vivid. You see rivers running backward, palaces in ruins, the faces of those you wronged beckoning from the shadows. Sometimes you are a child again, running through endless fields. Sometimes you are lost in a labyrinth of corridors that lead nowhere. The boundaries between waking and sleeping dissolve. When you open your eyes, you are never sure if you are still dreaming. One evening, As the sun sets in a haze of violet and gold, you sense a final shift. The air is heavy, full of unspoken words. Your body is exhausted beyond description, yet your mind is oddly clear. You know, with the certainty of the condemned, that the end is truly near. You feel it in the hush that settles over your attendants, in the way Father Lorenzo lingers by your side, in the tears that pool in the eyes of your favorite maid. You take comfort in small things, the softness of the sheets, the warmth of a hand in yours, the memory of voices long silent. You are not afraid, not exactly. There is a sadness, yes, a quiet ache for all that you are leaving behind, but also a relief that the struggle is nearly over. The weight of expectation, the burden of rule, the ceaseless demands, they are already slipping away, replaced by a lightness you have not known in years. You close your eyes and wait, ready for whatever comes next. The palace prepares for your end with a professionalism that is, if nothing else, impressive. Death, after all, is not an unexpected visitor in these stone corridors. It is a well rehearsed performance woven into the rhythm of royal life. Your decline may be unique to you, but to the machinery of court, it is simply another transition to be managed, another set of protocols to be followed. You begin to notice the subtle changes first, how the number of candles in your chamber multiplies, as if light alone could ward off what is coming. Your sheets are changed with ceremonial care, every wrinkle smoothed, every pillow fluffed to perfection. Your attendants speak in hushed tones, their conversations drifting out of earshot as you drift in and out of feverish dreams. There is a sudden abundance of flowers, lilies and violets and sprigs of rosemary, as if the scent of fresh blossoms can mask the sick room's undertones of blood, sweat, and the medicinal rot of failed remedies. The palace chaplain comes more often, his visits growing longer, his prayers more elaborate. He speaks not just for you, but for the gathered servants, inviting them to join in whispered litanies. Father Lorenzo stands nearby, his face a careful arrangement of concern and resignation, clutching his book of rites like a shield. He has already brought the oil for extreme unction, and you sense that he lingers in your doorway less to comfort you and more to ensure the last rites will not be missed in the final, frantic minutes. Other preparations unfold outside your view. Messengers slip in and out at odd hours, their faces drawn and anxious. The household steward inventories the royal wardrobe with brisk efficiency, ensuring there will be suitable black for mourning. The palace seamstresses work through the night, hemming shrouds and refurbishing funeral banners. The kitchens are instructed to prepare simple meals suitable for those in mourning. No one wants to remember a death by the taste of stale pastries. Your court physician appears less frequently now, his confidence eroded by the parade of symptoms he could neither explain nor cure. When he does visit, he checks your pulse with a gentle touch, as if afraid to disturb whatever thread still ties you to life. He no longer debates with Master Giovanni or insists on leeches and tonics. Instead, he looks at you with a weary compassion and tells your attendants to keep you comfortable. It is a final admission that there is nothing left to be done. Word spreads through the palace, as it always does. The courtiers who once thronged your antechamber now keep their distance, their presence replaced by nervous whispers and speculative glances. Behind closed doors, the ambitious begin to calculate who will rise, who will fall, whose fortunes will shift with the change of reign. The atmosphere is electric, charged with equal parts dread and anticipation. No one says it, but you know that already. In shadowy corners, alliances are being forged and secrets traded in exchange for future favors. A new cast of visitors arrives, relatives who have not troubled your threshold in years, minor nobles bearing gifts and stiff condolences, envoys from distant courts eager to observe your last hours and report home. Their faces blur together in your memory, each one bearing the same solemn expression, the same poorly concealed curiosity. You see them glance past you to your counselors, measuring the new order before it even exists. Your closest attendants, those who have served you for years, become both more attentive and more withdrawn. They move quietly, avoiding your gaze, as if your suffering might be contagious. Yet in small moments, their affection surfaces, a cool cloth pressed gently to your brow, a whispered prayer for your peace, a fleeting squeeze of your hand. You are no longer their queen, not really. You are a patient, a burden, a soon to be memory. The protocol for royal death is unyielding. As your breathing grows shallower, your chamber is prepared for the final act. A silk screen is placed at the foot of your bed to shield you from the less dignified aspects of dying. The best linens are laid out, embroidered with your family's crest. A gold crucifix is set within reach, along with the relics collected over a lifetime of superstition and diplomacy. When Father Lorenzo enters for the last time, he does so with the weight of ceremony, accompanied by chanting monks and the careful tolling of bells from the palace chapel below. Even nature joins in the performance. The light seems to dim. The air thickens with the scent of rain and wet earth, as if the heavens themselves are preparing for morning. Outside your window, the city slows, its usual cacophony replaced by a tense quiet. The poor of Naples gather in the cathedral to pray, though whether for your soul or their own uncertain future is impossible to say. As the hour draws near, you sense the palace contracting around you. The corridors that once echoed with your footsteps are silent now, the guards at your door standing a little straighter, a little sadder. Your remaining family is summoned to your side, their faces pinched with grief or fear or simply exhaustion. They sit beside you, speaking words you barely hear, their hands gripping yours as if trying to anchor you to the world a little longer. Your own possessions are quietly collected. Jewelry is counted and catalogued, ready to be handed down or locked away. Letters and diaries are bundled, some destined for the archives, others, more personal, likely to be burned unread. The business of legacy unfolds with the same relentless efficiency as everything else in the palace. You are not here to witness most of it. Your world has already narrowed to the hush of whispered prayers and the touch of a cool hand. And then, in the final hours, the last rituals begin. Candles are lit, incense burns, prayers are said for your passage. Those who cannot bear to watch slip away one by one, leaving only the most faithful, the most dutiful. The hush grows deeper, expectant, as if the whole world holds its breath, waiting for the last thread to break. You realize in these last moments that your death is not yours alone. It belongs to the palace, to the city, to history. It is a spectacle and a duty, as carefully staged as your coronation. Those around you are not simply witnesses, they are participants, playing their part in the great, inevitable pageant of royal death. And as you drift toward darkness, you understand at last that you are as much a symbol as a person, your life and death woven into the endless tapestry of kings and queens, of victories and failures, of suffering, and finally, of silence. The world outside your chamber has always been a hive of activity, footsteps echoing on marble floors, the persistent shuffle of servants, the clamor of courtiers, and the distant calls of guards changing watch. For most of your reign, this ceaseless movement was your reassurance, evidence that your will was enacted, that your realm, however fragile, still pulsed with life. Now, in these final days, all that bustling energy seems to drain away, leaving only a strange, pregnant silence. It begins with the slow withdrawal of the healthy. The chattering ladies in waiting, who once hovered by your bedside, have receded to the corners of the room, speaking in whispers, if at all. The bustling maids, once eager to please, tread so softly you hardly know they are there. Servants who used to dart from door to door now vanish entirely unless summoned for some immediate need. Their absence is practical, of course. No one wants to be present at the moment of death unless required, but it also has the quality of a retreat, as if the entire palace is recoiling from the inevitable. The palace itself seems to respond in kind. You hear fewer doors opening and closing, fewer voices in the hall. The usual music from distant chambers, harp, lute, the soft rise and fall of song, ceases as if the musicians themselves are holding their breath. At meals, the silver is set with quiet care, and conversation falters, reduced to the barest exchange of necessities. The echoes that once bounced merrily through the vast corridors are muted, absorbed by heavy drapes and shut doors. At night, the quiet is even deeper. The wind's howl through the battlements seems to carry messages you cannot decipher. The stone walls, usually so indifferent, creak and settle as if mourning in their own language. In the absence of voices and footsteps, you become aware of smaller sounds. The hiss of a candle as it gutters, the distant tolling of a church bell, the slow, uneven rhythm of your own breath. These details swell to fill the space, at once comforting and oppressive. The quiet penetrates your inner circle as well. Those closest to you, your most trusted ladies, the chaplain, the physician who no longer pretends at hope, move in a kind of slow motion, every gesture careful and deliberate. There is no more discussion of cures or treatments. No one debates whether another tonic should be tried or if you ought to be moved to a sunnier room. Instead, there is only waiting, waiting for the next breath, the next sign of distress, the final moment when their roles will be complete. The council chambers, once a place of endless argument and noise, are now nearly empty. Reports are delivered in writing rather than speech. Decrees are signed with little ceremony. The grand audience hall, which once rang with the petitions and complaints of your subjects, now lies silent, the benches empty, the banners drooping in the still air. Only the faintest scent of incense from the ever burning altar candles testifies that the court has not entirely abandoned its routines. Beyond your immediate circle, the rest of the palace adapts to the hush. The kitchens, usually a place of raucous chatter and clattering pots, produce only simple fare, broths, bread, boiled meat. The cooks speak little, their laughter replaced by the quiet scrape of knives. In the servants' quarters, speculation is exchanged in murmurs, eyes always watching for the next messenger to bring news from the Queen's chamber. The stables, the gardens, the guard rooms, all seem subdued, as if some great weight has settled over every stone. You find the silence both soothing and uncanny. It grants you time to reflect, to sort through memories that surface now with the clarity and weight of old coins. Sometimes the quiet brings peace, a sense of finally being allowed to rest, no longer required to perform or to command. Other times, it is unbearable, amplifying your loneliness and the hollow ache of regret. You wonder if this is how all rulers end, not with the clangor of fate or the cheers of a grateful nation, but with a gentle, gradual fading into irrelevance. Inside your own mind, an even deeper quiet settles. The worries that once kept you up at night, the shifting alliances, the betrayals, the fears of invasion and revolt, have all grown distant, like the memory of a dream. Your thoughts turn instead to the faces of those you loved, to the soft green of spring fields, to the warmth of a hand in yours. Words fail you more often now. Thoughts drift away before you can finish them. Sometimes you find yourself gazing at the pattern of light on the ceiling for hours, comforted by its simplicity. Your sense of time becomes slippery. The hours stretch, contract, blur. You are unsure if it is morning or evening, whether a day has passed or a week. Sleep comes in brief, restless intervals, offering only vague, drifting dreams. The dividing line between waking and sleeping erodes until both feel equally unreal. Sometimes you awaken to the soft murmur of prayers, sometimes to the sound of someone quietly weeping nearby. Sometimes there is only silence. You are aware dimly that outside your palace, the city still breathes and moves. Merchants haggle, children play in the alleys, priests offer mass for your soul. But here, in your shrinking world, Life has become a whisper, a gentle exhalation, soon to be stilled. As your final days unfold, the hush within your palace becomes complete. It is as if everyone, everything, is holding its breath. And you, at the center of this stillness, wait for the silence to finally take you. As the silence deepens, so too does your perception shift. The old certainties about power, duty, even your own place in the world begin to dissolve in the long gray light of your sick room. There is nothing left to distract you. With every day that passes, the rituals of court, the careful performances, the urgent demands of politics, all fade into the background, replaced by a steady inward gaze that cannot be averted. In the beginning, your mind claws for relevance. You think about the affairs of the kingdom with a kind of anxious reflex. The unfinished treaties, the looming threats, the shifting loyalties of your nobles. You imagine yourself rising from bed, straightening your back, issuing commands with the force of habit. For a while, you keep up the pretense, asking for news from the council, demanding to see documents, offering opinions that are dutifully recorded and just as dutifully ignored. But your heart is not in it. The counselors have learned to manage without you, and you, in your weakening state, are forced to admit that your interventions are mere echoes, ghostly reminders of the power you once wielded. With that realization comes something unexpected: relief. The burden of rule, which once defined your very existence, is slipping from your shoulders, and though part of you mourns its loss, another part finds a strange comfort in it. You are no longer responsible for the ungrateful machinery of state, for the ceaseless expectations, the weight of decisions that could never satisfy everyone. For the first time in your life, you can afford to let go. This is not a peaceful acceptance at first. There is resentment, an angry fire that flares in the quiet hours. You recall slights and betrayals, the false friends, the scheming relatives, the advisors whose loyalty dissolved the moment you grew weak. You remember the endless negotiations, the sacrifices you made, the parts of yourself you lost along the way. There are moments, especially at night, when you rage against it all, when you rehearse old arguments in your mind, determined to have the last word, even if only with the shadows on the wall. But anger, like everything else, fades. It gives way to a tired amusement. The court, with all its gossip and games, now seems almost childlike, a parody of seriousness. You watch from a distance as the same dramas replay with different faces, the same ambitions and fears chasing their tails through the halls of power. You remember how desperately you once wanted to be at the center of it all, and how hollow that center feels now, empty as a cracked goblet. You begin to find comfort in smaller things: the warmth of sunlight creeping across your bed in the afternoon, the gentle pressure of a hand on yours, the scent of clean linen, the flutter of bird wings outside your window. These are the moments that fill your days now, tiny, easily missed, but somehow more real than the grand ceremonies and declarations that once defined your life. You start to view yourself differently, too. In the world beyond your bed, you remain a queen, a figure in the chronicles, a name on the lips of priests and diplomats. But here, in the soft, muffled chamber of illness, you are simply a woman nearing the end of her story. The titles, the honors, the grievances, they no longer seem to fit. They hang around your shoulders like garments meant for someone else. You remember the girl you were before the crown, the dreams you had that were simpler, quieter, more selfish. You wonder, not for the first time, if that girl was lost for good, or if she was always waiting in the wings for this moment of surrender. Your sense of time changes as well. The future, which once stretched out in front of you in daunting, infinite possibility, now shrinks to the present moment. You no longer worry about what will come after, about the succession, the fate of the realm, the judgments of history. These things you see now are not for you to decide. You become less interested in the world's opinions and more attuned to your own inner voice, a voice that has grown gentler, less demanding. You notice the absurdity of it all, sometimes with bitter humor. All your striving, all your battles and alliances and hard won victories seem suddenly insubstantial, as if you spent your life arranging the scenery for a play that no one will remember. You wonder if the chroniclers, when they come to record your reign, will even bother with the details of your struggles, or if you will be reduced to a handful of dates and a footnote about your illness. There is an irony in that, and you are not above laughing at it, quietly, so as not to alarm the nurse who thinks you are asleep. At times, melancholy creeps in, as steady and insidious as the fever. You grieve for the things you will not finish, for the people you will not see again, for the words you left unsaid. But even this sadness has a softening effect. It becomes less a wound and more a balm, a gentle ache that lets you know you are still alive, even as life slips away. You become less interested in the opinions of others. Their judgments, once so important, are now as fleeting as the shadows that pass over your ceiling. The approval of the court, the gossip of the city, the envy of your rivals, none of it matters in the end. You find yourself caring more about the small kindnesses, the nurse who tucks your hair behind your ear, the friend who sits with you in silence, the priest who prays without expecting you to join in. These gestures, so easily overlooked, now seem to carry all the meaning in the world. Your prayers, when you manage them, are less requests for salvation and more offerings of gratitude. You thank whatever force guides the universe for the joys you did know, the laughter, the beauty, the moments of peace. You forgive yourself, haltingly, for the mistakes and the moments of cruelty, recognizing at last that you are no different from anyone else, imperfect, afraid, longing for love. This is your new life, distilled to its essence. There is no grandeur, no drama, no urgency, only the quiet acceptance that everything changes, everything passes, and in the end, you are left with yourself. You realize as the days grow shorter and your body grows lighter that you do not need to be remembered as great. It is enough to be remembered at all. And so you lie in the quiet of your fading world, no longer queen or legend or cautionary tale, but simply yourself, small, flawed, and at last at peace with all that you have been and all that you will soon leave behind. Weakness has been your companion for some time now, but the last phase arrives as a stranger, quiet, certain, and absolute. There is no sudden crisis, no dramatic collapse, no gasping final act for the benefit of onlookers. It simply grows in you, patient and unstoppable, until one day you realize that even the memory of strength has left you. You have become a still point in a world that continues to move, a figure faded almost to transparency. It starts with your hands. Once you could force them to obey, even as they trembled and fumbled and dropped things. Now they are not just weak, they are foreign. You watch your fingers rest motionless on the coverlet, curled slightly inward, as if seeking something they have forgotten. They will not respond to your will, no matter how desperately you try to coax them. Even lifting your hand to wave away a persistent fly becomes an impossible effort. Sometimes a nurse will tuck a smooth stone into your palm or wrap your fingers around a handkerchief as if to remind you what holding felt like. You close your eyes and imagine the old days, the weight of a scepter, the comfort of a lover's hand, the crisp feel of parchment as you signed your name with a flourish that made your secretaries wince. Your legs, long since unsteady, are now useless. They lie beneath the blankets, a vague and distant presence, neither warm nor cold, neither comfortable nor painful. When your attendants turn you, it is as if they are handling a sack of grain or a doll. There is no longer any pretense of dignity. Their faces are careful and kind, but you can see their sadness, their discomfort at being so intimately involved in your body's last rebellions. You try to thank them, but your voice is faint and unreliable, more a breath than a word. Your breath, too, betrays you. At first, it was just shortness, a faintness, a need to rest after the smallest effort. Now, each inhale is a deliberate act, a negotiation with the world. You listen to yourself breathe, slow and uneven, and marvel at the simple mechanics of life. The act that once required no thought now demands all your attention. The room seems to tilt with every labored gasp, the air heavy and thick, as if you are breathing through wool. Your nurses prop you up with pillows and whisper encouragement, but your lungs fill and empty at their own pace, indifferent to comfort or concern. Your senses narrow, focusing on the simplest of stimuli. The world becomes reduced to texture and temperature, the roughness of the sheets against your skin, the coolness of a wet cloth pressed to your forehead, the faint warmth of a sunbeam drifting across the bed. Food and drink are impossible now. Even water, offered in spoonfuls, trickles from the corner of your mouth. Sometimes you are aware enough to be embarrassed. Other times, the indignity of it all floats past, unimportant. Your body is no longer your own, and nothing you do will change its slow, stubborn descent. The others in the room have learned to measure your life in tiny increments. They count your breaths, time the moments between them, watch your eyes for signs of awareness. Their conversations are quiet, practical, and full of euphemisms. She is resting, they say, or she is peaceful now, as if by naming your decline as tranquility, they can wish it so. You are not fooled, but you appreciate the effort. There is a tenderness in their lies, a kindness in their refusal to force you to face what you already know. Father Lorenzo becomes a nearly permanent fixture at your bedside, a gentle sentinel. He prays over you, sometimes silently, sometimes aloud, the words blurring into a comforting drone. You are not sure if he is praying for your soul or for his own peace, but you are grateful either way. He holds your hand, feeling for the faint pulse in your wrist, his eyes full of compassion and fatigue. The nurses come and go with bowls of water, with clean linens, with whispered reassurances that seem meant more for each other than for you. The world outside your room has faded to a rumor. You are vaguely aware that life goes on. Bells ring in the distance, doors open and close, people speak in the hallways. But these are echoes, irrelevant to your shrinking universe. You exist now in the hush between breaths, in the small, careful acts of those who remain with you. There is no more talk of politics, no more speculation about your successor, no more courtiers jockeying for your attention. Those days are over. What remains is this: a room, a bed, a handful of faces, and the ever present, ever growing weakness. Your mind drifts in and out of clarity. Sometimes you are a child again, running through gardens, laughing as you chase a dog across bright green grass. Sometimes you are a queen at her coronation, the weight of the crown unfamiliar and thrilling. Sometimes you are just yourself, unnamed and unburdened, a soul floating somewhere between memory and anticipation. The boundaries between past and present blur. The future is irrelevant, the past reimagined. Occasionally, a visitor appears at your side, a relative, a priest, a lifelong friend summoned for final farewells. Their faces are soft and blurred at the edges, their voices a soothing murmur. They say the things people say at the end. You have been brave. You will be remembered. You have nothing to fear. You want to thank them, to tell them what matters now, but words are slippery and your mouth is dry. You hope your eyes are eloquent enough. Time loses all meaning. Night and day are indistinguishable, broken only by the lighting and extinguishing of candles. The rhythm of your body, the racing heart, the shallow breath, becomes your only clock. You float, neither truly awake nor truly asleep, waiting for the last bit of strength to slip away. There is nothing left to fight. There is instead a strange peace in surrender, a quiet gratitude for the hands that tend you, for the prayers that fill the silence, for the presence of others as your story draws to its end. The final weakness is total, all encompassing, soft as dusk. You are not afraid. You are not even sad. Not exactly. What you feel is an odd sort of curiosity, a readiness to see what comes next. You have played every role you were given. Now, at last, you are allowed to simply be. The world outside your bed, your chamber, your body slips away, and you, lighter than you have ever been, wait for the last breath, the final letting go. You have thought about your last day from time to time in all the seasons of your life. You imagined it, as most do, as a moment of drama or clarity, a final gathering of strength, a significant last word, a great curtain fall with everyone assembled to witness it. Reality, of course, is quieter, stranger, both less and more than you once pictured. Your last day is not a single, shining instant, but a slow drift through memory and sensation, a gentle erosion rather than a sudden collapse. The morning comes without ceremony, the gray light seeping through thick drapes that have not been drawn back for weeks. You are already awake, though it is hard to say if you ever truly slept. Your mind floats somewhere between the world of dreams and the world of waking, snatches of childhood and rain mixing with the familiar, slow rhythms of illness. You are not sure what signals the beginning of the day. Perhaps it is the gentle voice of your nurse, the cool cloth on your brow, or the faint chime of a distant bell. In any case, you know, without anyone telling you, that this is the end. There is a soft flurry of activity around your bed. Attendants come and go with practiced efficiency. You are washed and dressed in your finest, your hair brushed and braided, a ring slipped onto your finger. These rituals are carried out with reverence, though you suspect they are more for the benefit of others than for yourself. You barely feel the hands that tend you, your body already drifting away from sensation, the world receding by inches. Your family is summoned, those who remain. They gather in your chamber, faces drawn and voices hushed, each one bearing a mixture of love, guilt, fear, and resignation. Some weep openly, others simply stare, as if the effort of pretending strength is too much to sustain. You see them all, yet their faces blend together, a gallery of familiar and half forgotten expressions. The young ones, those too little to understand, are kept near the door, their eyes wide and solemn. The adults take turns holding your hand, pressing kisses to your forehead, murmuring reassurances you no longer need. Father Lorenzo is there, his presence a constant in these last days. He anoints your forehead with oil, whispers the final prayers, offers you the last rites with a steadiness born of long experience. His words flow over you, gentle and rhythmic, promising forgiveness, promising peace. You listen, not for the content, but for the kindness in his tone. The prayers are old and familiar, woven into the fabric of your life. They form a bridge between the world you are leaving and whatever comes after. Outside your chamber, the palace continues its quiet vigil. Candles are kept burning in the chapel. The bells toll more frequently, each peal a signal to the city that its queen is slipping away. In the courtyard, courtiers and servants exchange glances, Speak in whispers and prepare for the inevitable shift in power. You are aware of this in a distant way, but it no longer matters. The world you once ruled is no longer your concern. The burdens of command, of legacy, of history itself fall away. The day is measured not in hours, but in small, almost sacred acts. The taste of water on your tongue, the brush of a cool sheet across your skin, the warmth of a hand resting in yours. You drift in and out of sleep, each time awakening to find the room a little dimmer, the air a little heavier. You listen to the voices around you, soft, loving, sometimes weeping, sometimes praying. You try to smile, to reassure, but your muscles will not cooperate. You hope they understand that your silence is not indifference, but the last expression of love you can muster. At times, your mind clears and you find yourself looking back over the course of your life. Moments rise to the surface, glimpses of gardens, the feel of sun on your skin, the taste of bread after a long fast, laughter shared with friends who are now only memories. You think of mistakes, of victories, of days wasted and days cherished. Each memory is both sharper and softer than you expect, touched by the unreality of fever and the gentleness of farewell. Your attendants remain nearby, vigilant and quiet. They tend to your comfort with a devotion that borders on tenderness, their hands steady even as their faces betray exhaustion and sorrow. They speak to you in soft voices, whether or not you can answer. They light new candles as the day fades, filling the chamber with a warm, flickering glow. The world outside the windows drifts into darkness, and still they stay, waiting, as if their presence alone can hold you to the earth a little longer. The pain that once defined your days has faded to a distant ache, a background hum. In its place is a profound weariness, a sense of floating, of being untethered from your own body. Breathing becomes slower, shallower, but you are not afraid. The terror of death, which haunted your thoughts for so long, seems small now, an old story, worn thin by repetition. What matters is this: you are surrounded by love, by care, by the patient, unwavering attention of those who chose to stay until the end. In the final hours, your mind grows quieter. The sharpness of memory blurs. The noise of regret and longing softens. You are neither here nor there, neither wholly alive nor entirely gone. There is only peace, only stillness, only the long, slow drawing away from the world you have known. The candles flicker, the prayers continue, the hands that hold yours grow colder as the hours pass. And when the last light slips from the room, when the final breath comes, it arrives not as a drama, but as a sigh, a gentle letting go, a soft descent into whatever comes next. There are tears, yes, and whispers of grief, but also relief, and perhaps a kind of gratitude. Your suffering is over. Your story, for all its sorrow and struggle, has found its ending. Outside, the bells toll again, announcing your passing to the city and the world. Inside, the room is still. You are gone, but the love and care that surrounded you linger, woven into the silence, into the memories of those who witnessed your last day, into the history that will slowly, inevitably, turn the page. The hours after sunset seem to expand, thick and slow, as if time itself is reluctant to cross this final threshold. The room is dim, flickering with candlelight and shadow, and the world has narrowed to the cool hush of your bed, the weight of linen on your legs, the soft, uneven rhythm of your breathing. Every sense is magnified, even as the world recedes. Voices are distant, but insistent. Hands on your brow feel enormous and gentle. Every sound and silence seems to echo for miles. Your attendants have gathered, a silent circle at the edges of your awareness. Some kneel in prayer, others stand awkwardly with heads bowed, clutching handkerchiefs. The air is thick with anticipation and fear, as if no one dares to speak above a whisper, lest they disturb the choreography of your final moments. You sense their presence as one might sense the tide, always there, steady, beyond your ability to command or dismiss. You have become a vessel for their hopes and grief, for their anxieties about what comes next, for their superstitious conviction that witnessing the end of a monarch must surely confer either blessing or curse. Father Lorenzo is there, of course, his prayers the one constant in these dissolving hours. He murmurs words over you, blessings, absolutions, farewells. Occasionally, he presses a cross to your hand or touches holy oil to your brow. The ritual is less for you than for those who remain, the living more in need of reassurance than the dying. You let the words wash over you, sometimes comprehending, sometimes not. They are part of the music of leaving, familiar and strangely comforting. You become aware of your body in a new way. Each muscle, each bone, each failing organ announcing itself in turn. You feel the slow seep of cold into your feet and hands, the shallowness of each breath, the hollow thump of your heart as it struggles to keep pace. The pain, once sharp and demanding, has become a background noise, a dull ache that no longer demands your attention. In its place is a deep exhaustion, a weariness that seeps into every corner of you. Your eyelids are heavy, your mouth too dry to form words. You wonder briefly if you should try to say something meaningful, a last bit of wisdom or comfort for those you leave behind. But even that feels too ambitious, too theatrical. In truth, there is nothing left to say. There is a strange freedom in this final surrender. You are no longer queen or patient, no longer a collection of symptoms or the object of courtly intrigue. You are simply a body and a breath, waiting for the last quiet exhalation. Time loses all shape, all urgency. You drift, sometimes catching a half remembered tune or the scent of wax and lavender. You think of gardens and rain and laughter. You wonder what will become of your rings, your letters, your secrets. You wonder if you will be missed or merely replaced. Occasionally, your senses sharpen in brief, crystalline moments. You notice the way candlelight trembles on the walls. You see the lines on the faces of those who have not slept, the tear streaked cheeks of your youngest attendant. You hear the distant tolling of bells from the city below, the ancient, indifferent rhythm of a world that continues, unconcerned with the passing of queens. You recognize in these moments that you are not the center of the story, never truly were. You are a chapter, a verse, a name that will be spoken for a while and then forgotten. You begin to feel lighter, as if your body is releasing its hold on you one piece at a time. Your breaths are shallow, separated by long pauses. Sometimes you forget to inhale until a gentle hand nudges your shoulder or a voice calls your name. You are drifting, floating, untethered from the rituals of the living. Fear has left you. Even sorrow seems thin and insubstantial. In its place is a kind of curiosity, a wondering about what, if anything, comes after. At the end, there is a hush that falls across the room, so complete and profound that you imagine even the world outside must pause to listen. The prayers fade, the tears stop, every breath is measured and marked. Your own breath is almost gone now, a fluttering at the edge of silence. You feel, dimly, the touch of a hand on yours, the pressure light and reassuring. There are words whispered in your ear, farewells, forgiveness, hopes for peace. You understand little of them, but their meaning is clear. And then, at last, you let go. The final breath leaves your body, soft as a sigh, quieter than the last note of a lullaby. There is no thunder, no divine revelation, no flash of light, only stillness and the gentle, inevitable quiet that follows every ending. For a moment, those gathered do not move, as if uncertain that what they have witnessed is real. And then, almost reverently, they mark the passing, the sign of the cross, the closing of your eyes, the final prayer for your soul. You are gone, leaving behind a bed, a silence, a handful of people who will remember your face in dreams and stories. Your reign ends not with spectacle, but with a fading breath and the echo of prayers in a quiet, candlelit room. Outside, the world will move on. Inside, for just a little while, your absence is a presence, palpable, aching, but soon to be swept away by the onward rush of time. Your story is over, but the world, dull, stubborn, indifferent, goes on. Death you quickly discover, though of course it is not you who truly discovers it, but the people you leave behind does not pause the world. Your passing is an event, yes, but not a stopping point. No thunder shakes the palace, no celestial herald proclaims the end of an age. Instead, the wheels of life, which have been grinding inexorably forward even as you lay dying, simply continue. The machinery of court resumes its motion as if you had merely stepped into another room. Within hours of your final breath, your chamber is transformed. The hush that had filled the room during your last moments is replaced by a rush of careful, professional activity. Attendants move swiftly, some with the blank faces of duty, others with the raw edges of recent grief. The windows are thrown open, and the heavy, sick room air is allowed to escape, replaced by the scent of rain and the distant, indifferent city beyond your palace walls. Candles are snuffed and new ones lit. Your body, which so recently was the center of the world's concern, is handled now with the reverent, almost impersonal efficiency of ritual. You are washed, dressed in funeral garments, your hair arranged, your hands folded on your chest, an icon of what you once were, a symbol already, no longer a person. The court stirs as word of your death spreads. There are formal announcements to be made, bells to be tolled, protocols to be followed. Messengers sprint through stone corridors with the news, their footsteps loud where silence reigned just hours before. Black drapes are hung along the grand stairways. The royal banners are lowered, shrouded in mourning. Mourning garb is produced from deep closets and passed from hand to hand. The palace seamstresses working through the night to ensure that even the least significant page appears appropriately somber. Everyone plays their part. The grief is ritualized, given form and schedule and etiquette. Your family is escorted to a private chamber, shielded from both prying eyes and the tidal wave of politics that will follow. They weep, or they do not. The depth of their sorrow is measured against the need to act quickly, to secure their place in the new order. Advisors and counselors convene, speaking in low, urgent voices, reviewing succession protocols and legal documents, redistributing power even before your body is cold. Alliances are reaffirmed or renegotiated. Oaths are broken and remade. The city's priests are put to work, offering masses for your soul, lighting candles, receiving donations from those who hope to curry favor with the divine or with your successor. Meanwhile, your remains are displayed for public mourning. The people are invited to file past your bier, to bow, to cross themselves, to whisper prayers for your salvation. Some weep genuinely, remembering a moment of mercy or a fleeting smile from their queen. Others weep for the spectacle, for the theater of grief that is as old as monarchy itself. Still others come not to mourn, but to see what comes next, their eyes already searching the faces of the new power brokers for signs of change. Outside the palace, the city of Naples does not stop. Markets open as always. Merchants hawk their wares. Children play in the alleys. The river flows indifferent to your absence. News of your death passes from mouth to mouth, grows, mutates, merges with rumor and legend. For some, it is a day of genuine sadness. For others, a distant piece of news, quickly absorbed and forgotten. In the countryside, the peasants hear of it late, if at all. They bow their heads, perhaps, or say a quick prayer, then return to the endless work of living and dying. The palace staff, having fulfilled the protocols of grief, return to their routines. The kitchens resume cooking. The laundresses scrub sheets and gossip about your final moments. Servants who once tiptoed down hallways now walk with ordinary haste. The music that had ceased in your final days begins anew, tentative at first, then gathering confidence as the business of living reasserts itself. Courtiers reappear, some wearing genuine sorrow, others already rehearsing their lines for the next act. Life, stubborn and pragmatic, reclaims its ground. The political drama unfolds at pace. Your heir is presented to the people, dressed in ceremonial black, voice trembling with the solemnity of inheritance. New coins are minted, new portraits commissioned. The council, so careful to appear grieving, now turns its attention to the future: border skirmishes, trade agreements, marriages that must be arranged or dissolved. You are invoked as precedent, as warning, as symbol, but the living rarely linger on the dead. Your name is still spoken, but more as punctuation than invocation, a convenient pause before the next urgent matter. There is a funeral, grand and somber, attended by dignitaries from near and far. Your body, carried through the streets, is accompanied by the expected wailing and the measured tolling of bells. The people watch, some in silence, others in whispered conversation. The ceremony is ornate and beautiful, its choreography practiced over generations, designed as much to reassure the city as to honor you. As your coffin disappears into the family vault, the crowd disperses with the efficiency of a tide. Mourning recedes, life advances. Within the palace, your personal effects are cataloged, redistributed, or locked away. Your bed is stripped, your rings and jewels inventoried. Your letters, those not destined for the archive, are burned, unread, by hands too pragmatic for sentiment. Some servants weep as they work, others simply note that a new queen or king will soon require their attentions. The tapestry of your reign is already being picked apart, rewoven to suit the needs of the present. In the weeks that follow, your absence becomes routine. The rituals of mourning are observed, then set aside. The palace finds its new rhythm. The city learns to greet its new ruler. Children born after your death will know you only as a name in the chronicles, a face in a faded painting, a subject for dry sermons and long winded genealogies. Life goes on, as it always does. The bells ring for other reasons. The palace windows glow with other lights. If you could see it, and perhaps in some corner of eternity you do, you would recognize that this too is a kind of mercy. The world forgets because it must. History moves because it cannot stand still. Your place, once so central, becomes another stone in the endless road of time, worn smooth by the feet of those who follow. The story is over, but the telling never ends. And so the world turns, the court awakens, the city breathes, and you are gone. Your funeral is predictably an event, a performance rehearsed over centuries, attended by all the right faces, and observed with the proper level of solemnity. The day of your burial dawns gray and heavy, as if the heavens themselves have dutifully read the program and decided to match the mood. The palace is awash in black. Velvet banners hang from the windows. Every servant dons their best mourning attire, and the courtiers compete to see who can arrange their features into the most convincing mask of sorrow. Your body, now more relic than person, is displayed in state beneath an embroidered canopy, surrounded by tall candles and pungent incense. Important visitors come to stand vigil, offering murmured prayers and measured tears. For some, this is a genuine moment of loss. For others, a chance to be seen, to mark themselves as participants in the closing chapter of your reign. The highborn and the hopeful kneel and cross themselves. The priests chant endlessly, and the air grows thick with the scent of lilies and candle wax. You, of course, are oblivious to the entire spectacle. The funeral procession is grand, befitting your status. Nobles and clergy march in careful formation, followed by an honor guard and a parade of servants. At each corner, crowds gather, some silent, some weeping, some merely curious about the spectacle of royalty. The city's bells ring in unison, their sound bouncing off the stone facades and rolling through the narrow streets. Children are lifted onto shoulders to catch a glimpse. Old women mutter prayers or gossip about the color of your shroud. The ceremony at the cathedral is a masterpiece of medieval pageantry. Incense billows, choirs sing, and your virtues are extolled by priests who barely remember you as anything but a name in their missals. They recount your deeds, your piety, your supposed wisdom, embellishing as needed for the sake of the narrative. The bishop delivers a eulogy, his voice echoing off stone walls, while your family sits in the front pews, faces fixed in a tableau of controlled grief. For some, the tears are real. For others, they are merely the final obligation before they can turn their thoughts to the inheritance. Once the final prayers have been said, your coffin, an ornate work of art, lined with velvet and decorated with gold, makes its way down the nave, past columns and carved saints, toward the crypt where generations of your kin lie stacked like so many unopened letters. The clergy murmur the last rites. The crowd shuffles forward, tossing flowers and hopes for their own fortunes. The coffin descends into darkness, out of sight, out of mind. The palace wastes no time in reverting to routine. Even as the scent of incense lingers in the halls, servants strip your chambers, carrying away the evidence of your life. The combs, the letters, the slippers, the portrait that never captured your eyes quite right. Your will is read, and its contents parsed, contested, and in some cases ignored. The court dresses in mourning for the prescribed period, but the black fades quickly, first in spirit, then in fabric. Within days, laughter returns to the corridors, music is heard in the chambers, and new intrigues sprout where your absence left fertile ground. Your family, free from the obligations of grief, turns its attention to the practical business of inheritance, titles, and estates. Your children, if you have any, are reminded of their duty to carry on the name, but their lives move forward, swept up in their own concerns. The advisors and counselors who once hovered at your bedside now cluster around your successor, eager to prove their loyalty anew. The chronicles record your passing with a flourish. Dates, titles, a handful of sentences summarizing decades of living and dying. In the city, your death is quickly overshadowed by the next crisis, a fire in the marketplace, rumors of plague, a scandal in a noble household. The poor continue to labor, the merchants to bargain, the priests to pray. You become a story traded at taverns and in the kitchens of the palace, each telling shorter and less accurate than the last. She was a good queen, some say. She was unlucky. She was strong, but no one agrees on the details. The stories fade, replaced by fresher gossip. In your crypt, the light recedes. Candles burn for a while, but eventually they are extinguished or forgotten. The stones settles, the dust gathers. You join the ranks of those whose names are carved into walls, whose likenesses are rendered in faded frescoes, whose stories are only as lasting as the parchment on which they are written. The world, which once seemed to revolve around your every whim, now turns quite happily without you. You are not entirely erased, of course. A handful of loyal retainers remember your voice, your laughter, the way you walked in the garden at dusk. For a time, anniversaries are marked with masses and flowers. But the living are busy, and memory is fickle. Soon, your name becomes just another answer to a question in a tutor's lesson, a detail in the endless genealogies of Europe's royalty, a footnote in a chronicler's account of the pestilences and wars that shape the age. What endures is not you, but the routine, the new queen's coronation, the fresh appointments, the grinding wheels of court life. What remains are the records, the debts, the unfinished stories of others, and the indifferent stone that marks your resting place. The palace, scrubbed and redecorated, prepares to welcome its next inhabitant, who will no doubt believe that their presence, unlike yours, will never be forgotten. You, the late Queen Joanna, once the axis of this complicated, clamorous world, are now only an echo, soft, brief, soon lost in the thick silence of centuries. Centuries pass. The world that knew your footsteps, your voice, your feverish last days dissolves into dust. Naples grows and changes. New rulers come and go. New wars and plagues rage and recede, and the city's skyline reshapes itself over and over. Somewhere beneath layers of marble and memory, your tomb lies undisturbed, while above, the streets are filled with people who no longer know your name. History, of course, has its own habits, its own boredom and prejudices, its appetite for simplification. It does not remember the precise angle at which sunlight struck your bed on your last day, nor the words whispered by your closest servant as she folded your hands for the final time. Instead, it remembers what can be measured and compared, what fits neatly in the margins of a chronicle or the pages of a school book. You are no longer Joanna, flesh and doubt and memory. You are Queen Joanna the First of Naples, with dates in brackets and a handful of facts trailing your name like so much tattered brocade. Some future scholar, poring over ancient manuscripts in a library that smells of mold and regret, will pause at your name. They will note your lineage, the circumstances of your accession, the violence that shadowed your reign. They will count your marriages, tally your misfortunes, and perhaps raise an eyebrow at the rumors that swirled around your court, rumors that seem more titillating the further they drift from the truth. They will record, in measured tones, that you died of illness in the year 1382. There will be no mention of the taste of fear on your tongue or the particular way your hands trembled as the end approached. Occasionally, your life becomes the subject of a lecture or a footnote in a dusty volume about the great dynastic struggles of the 14th century. You are compared to other queens, favorably or not, depending on the fashion of the times. Some call you a victim of circumstance, others a political survivor, still others a tragic figure whose missteps doomed an entire generation. The truth, complicated as it was in life, is flattened in death. Your reign is summarized in a paragraph, your character in a sentence. If you are lucky, you are the answer to a question on an exam. If not, you are simply skipped. Your illness, which so consumed your last weeks, is reduced to a line. Queen Joanna succumbed to a lingering fever. Her health never fully recovered after years of turmoil and stress. The agony, the confusion, the fear all vanish into the antiseptic calm of the historical record. The rituals, the prayers, the hopes and humiliations, lost unless some chronicler had a poetic impulse or some bored clerk jotted a note in the margin. But even those scraps fade, eaten by time, by insects, by indifference. A few centuries later, a historian with an ironic bent might attempt to rescue you from obscurity. Perhaps your story is retold in a new key, set against the backdrop of a changing world. Maybe a novelist makes you their heroine, reinventing you with modern sensibilities, reshaping your doubts and griefs into bold speeches and glamorous escapades. For a moment, your name flickers back to life, though the version that returns is not truly yours. History, after all, is an exercise in ventriloquism. The dead rarely get the last word. There are always arguments. Some insist you were a disaster for your kingdom, pointing to the chaos that followed your death, the struggles for succession, the gnawing sense that all your suffering accomplished little. Others, wishing for a more progressive heroine, emphasize your endurance, your resilience, your refusal to vanish quietly, even when the world seemed determined to erase you. Scholars and storytellers alike debate your motives, assign you virtues or vices, build elaborate theories on the fragments you left behind. The real you, the you who loved, feared, ached, and faded, remains stubbornly out of reach. In the city you once ruled, your memory becomes an echo. A narrow street bears your name, though few know who you were. A half-effaced mural in a neglected chapel depicts a crowned woman, her features blurred by time and neglect. School children yawn through the lesson in which you appear, more interested in lunch than in the fleeting fate of some distant queen. The cathedral where you were buried stands, but its stones have forgotten you. Even your grave, once a site of pilgrimage, is largely abandoned. A guidebook might mention you as a curiosity. Here lies Joanna, Queen of Naples, whose reign was marked by intrigue and unrest. But most visitors are drawn to newer tombs, more famous saints, or simply the promise of shade on a hot afternoon. Your epitaph, if it survives, is read by few and understood by fewer. So, centuries later, history judges you as it judges all, with boredom, with brevity, with a kind of grim efficiency. The suffering that filled your days is erased by the inertia of time, the failures and victories rendered interchangeable. Your reign is a curiosity, a question for a quiz, a half remembered story that drifts through the centuries until it settles quietly in the background noise of the past. There is perhaps a final irony in all of this. For all the rituals, the grandeur, the endless anxieties about legacy and memory, what remains is so much less than you imagined and so much less than you feared. You are not a cautionary tale, nor a tragic heroine, nor a villain. You are simply another entry in the infinite, indifferent record of human endings. The history books close. The city wakes and sleeps. The bells ring for other deaths, other queens. And you, Joanna, Queen of Naples, are at last permitted to rest, utterly, profoundly forgotten.